The 17th chapter is called Obedience and Disobedience. No one ever told me that obedience was expected in the guru-disciple relationship. Respect, of course. Reverence, of course. Devotion, of course. But obedience? And unconditionally, even in the absence of reason? It was early December 1996, and Swamiji, my guru, asked when I'd be going back to America. He asked it casually and straightforwardly, perhaps offering to help me make arrangements to get to Delhi. He's sometimes like a doting mother. "Have you had your meal?" was how he began most of our conversations those first months. If I ever said no or not yet, he would end our conversation abruptly, ring the bell by his side, and instruct the young man who came running to immediately feed me. Go and eat, then come back. So the question about travel plans seemed innocent and kind. When I'd arrived at the ashram 3 months earlier, the registration form had asked expected date of departure. December 15, I had written. I hope that all of you had got your eating in too. Make sure that you are fed. My flight to San Francisco had been scheduled for the evening of the 15th, and graduate school classes were to resume the first week of January. I had filled out that form before everything in my life changed, before I knew that this was where I was meant to be, before I knew that this was home. As many of you remember, our author had departed from her husband because originally her husband went for a spiritual pilgrimage, but she was the one that ended up finding a guru, and he didn't like that and left her. But she was happy to stay. She had found her home. Go back, I thought. Had this whole experience be a Narnian adventure? Was I now required to walk back through the wardrobe, leaving behind a world of love, beauty, vibrancy, and truth? I wouldn't. I had eaten no forbidden apples. I had disobeyed no divine instruction. Was I being kicked out of the Garden of Eden? Go back. I couldn't think any other thought. With each repetition of the question, I sank from the heights of joy to shock, anger, rebellion, and terror. Was he kicking me out? I hadn't done anything wrong. I don't want to leave, I whispered. My voice had left with my joy. Not only the rug, but also the floor and the very foundation had been pulled out from beneath me, and it carried my breath along too. I want to stay, I gasped, and I wondered whether the floor I was sitting on was sturdy enough to support me as I crumbled. Swamiji appeared, surprised by my reaction, and looked at me across the low wooden table. Had he not realized this was forever? Could he really think I would leave? I thought we'd agreed that it was God's plan for me to be there, and to me, that meant forever. I don't know which was harder to accept, returning to California, or that Swamiji didn't realize I was meant to stay. He tried the cultural argument. You will not be comfortable here forever. You will miss so many things. Ashram life is not easy. You are used to comfort. You have loved this for a few months, but forever is different. I could not believe it. Couldn't he see deeply into my soul and know I had already been given more than I'd ever imagined possible? Like a mother explaining to her child at the dinner table, lovingly but pointedly, "Yes, honey, you can have ice cream for dessert, but only after you finish your spinach." Swamiji said, "But you have to go back. You have to finish your psychology PhD degree." My what? A piece of paper that indicates I've successfully learned to identify pathologies and put people in boxes. A degree that required me to believe only what could be supported by research already completed, that offered a rope of innovation that was only as long as the list of supporting documents. A degree to heal traumatized children that seemed mostly to bolster my own ego. My voice shook as I explained, Swamiji, I don't want to finish my degree. It's unnecessary. I entered this PhD program to help children, but here I am, with only my research and dissertation left, and I have not helped one child. The only thing being helped is my own ego. I get A's on exams, and my ego likes it. A teacher pats me on the back for a smart comment in class, and I like it. I get the highest IQ scores, and I like it. But it's just ego. It's not benefiting children or the world. Tens of thousands of people get PhDs every year, and the world is not a better place, I continued. There is no connection between a PhD and alleviating misery, despair, and trauma in the world. You live every minute of your life making the world a better place. Through some crazy, amazing gift of grace, God has given me an opportunity to be part of something that actually makes the world a better place. How can I leave this to go back for a piece of paper? I was pleading. He ignored my arguments and simply said, You must go back and finish your degree. Then, if you still want to come back, you can come back. He smiled at me as though this were a good and practical thing to do. I should be happy. He was giving good, practical advice. Although I was sitting on the ground, my legs seemed to give way beneath me. I couldn't breathe. Should I beg? Cry? I'm the daughter of a great lawyer. I had won every debate in school. I would not be victim to such a ridiculous fate without an argument. Swamiji, I said, keeping my voice as stable and firm, yet polite as I could. Yes. May I ask you something? Of course. I want to understand. Please correct me anywhere I say something that is not true. He smiled. You say God is omniscient, right? That he knows everything. Swamiji nodded. Of course God knows everything. And you say he's omnipotent, right? He is all-powerful and can do anything, correct? Again, Swamiji nodded. These were such basic questions. Where was I going with this? You say he is good, right? He is all-loving and all-compassionate. He wants only the best for all of us. Swamiji replied with a smile at his disciple, the advocate. So, I, able protege of Law and Order's Jack McCoy, concluded, if God is omniscient, it means that he knew I was going to have this experience when I came here. He knew I still had 2 years left in my PhD program to finish my research and dissertation. If he is omnipotent, he could have made me not have the experience I did. He also could have made me come here after I'd finished my degree. If he is good, then he certainly doesn't want to send me back after having had the experiences I've had, simply to suffer in a meaningless program for the next 2 years. Therefore, I could not look at Swamiji. I was on too much of an intellectual high. If I'd make eye contact, it would have broken the spell of how well my mind was working. Therefore, either God is not omniscient and didn't know I'd have this experience, or he is not omnipotent and couldn't have done anything about it, or he is not good and therefore wants me to suffer, or... I paused for effect. Or it means I am meant to stay here. Silence. I took a breath. There it was, the truth as I understood it. Irrefutable, in my opinion. I half expected a gavel to appear and bang itself on the small wooden table in front of Swamiji. Objection sustained, the court would say. I could stay. But no magical gavel appeared and no universal judge spoke. There was silence. Okay, Swamiji said. Let's do one thing. He did not respond to what I had said. Or he did not respond at all to what I had said. He did not try to argue or explain or justify his instructions. My intellectual advocacy exercise existed in one plane, and his knowledge of what needed to happen was on a different plane. Go back and finish just the next semester, the one you are already registered for, the one your parents have already paid for. Get your straight A's, and then, if you still feel it's right, go through the proper channel to leave, and then you can come back. It won't look nice to just call and cancel your return now. It won't look nice is one of those Indian expressions that used to exasperate me. To whom, I would ask? Who's looking? But as time went on, and I learned Hindi, I understood the phrase from which it's literally translated. Tik nahi lagta hai. Really it means, it's not right or doesn't appear to be correct. One semester sounded like a fair compromise, although far from ideal. Why, I whined, as I hadn't since childhood. Why do I have to go back? Why do I have to finish the semester? There. There's a hair in my tongue somewhere. Mina, you like that phrase? I was sure of the illegitimacy of his instruction, as kids are when their parents explain about waiting till after dinner for dessert. But why? Why can't I have my ice cream first? When something is so perfect, how can there possibly be a good reason to delay? Swamiji looked at me, leaned back in his chair, and resigned that I was not going to just obey and crawl away, began to explain. You see only what you want to see. You see only what is happening to you. You see only what feels good and right to you. I see more. If you do not go back now, people will say you were brainwashed, that you joined a cult, that you ran away. That is not useful. If you are going to stay here, you must stay as a model of someone who has renounced something she had, not something she didn't have. To renounce that which you're failing at is not renunciation. To give up something you are losing anyway is not noble. If you come back here, you will be a model of someone who chose the spiritual path over the material path, he added. To be a model, you have to do what is right. Otherwise, people will just think you went crazy or got brainwashed. You will be of no use. The part of my brain able to be rational understood his meaning, that my life as a renunciant, and even as a teacher, a leader, or inspiring figure, would not bear fruit if people could write me off in those ways. Now, nearly 25 years since we had this conversation, I am no less impressed by his vast understanding of worlds he's never inhabited. Swamiji never in his lifetime lived in a college dorm. He never went to summer camp. He never attended a slumber party. He never experienced the challenges of married life or the subtleties of social circles in modern societies. Yet, his understanding of emotional triggers, expectations, psychological games, and nuances in the dance of relationships is profound. The causes of and solutions to insurmountable and irreconcilable differences in marriage, parenting dilemmas, and extended family dramas are clear to him, as though acquired from some universal book of knowledge. He knew, without ever meeting my parents, exactly how they would respond. He knew, without having ever lived in America, how my academic and social community would respond. I, who had known my parents for a quarter of a century, who had grown up in my community, who had spent nearly 7 years in the world of Palo Alto's academia, imagined that everyone would understand. I'd never really thought about it. It was just obvious. I would call home and tell them I was staying in India. I had found God and found my guru. Of course they would understand. I would call my school and tell them I wasn't coming back, that they should refund my parents' tuition money. Whether they understood or not was unimportant to me. I was done. And society? My world of grande soy lattes with 3 shots of espresso, salad bars and non-dairy frozen yogurt, burritos at the beach and naked Sundays in the spas of San Francisco, memorizing facts to recite back at professors, stressing over exams and then celebrating each A. That world existed in some forgotten dimension. Who cared what they thought? When I was around 3 years old, I had a whole community of plastic little people made by Fisher-Price, and I played with them constantly. They had their own houses and schools and parks. I wonder if any of you had those too. One day I flushed them all down the toilet to see if they could swim. That they never returned from their swimming adventure did not disturb me. I can still see my mother's face as she came into the toilet as I kept flushing and reflushing. I want to see if the little people can swim, I explained. Then, with the last flush, they were gone. If they could swim, they were swimming in some other direction. If they couldn't, they had gone to the land of people who can't swim. I did not mourn for my little people, for they weren't gone. They were swimming, or not swimming, in a magical land on the other side of the toilet. In their own wonderland, they were no longer with me, but that was fine. They were living in Toilet Land, and I was living on Hargis Street in Los Angeles. On that December morning in 1996 in Rishikesh, 22 years after I'd flushed the little people down the toilet, my feelings toward everyone I was living... Wait, I skipped a sentence. My feelings toward everyone I knew from my other life were similar. Everyone I knew was living in that land, and I was living in this land. They were fine. I was fine. Why was Swamiji so concerned about what they thought? As the sun burst through the early morning fog, unveiling the fluorescent purple... Oh boy, now that's a word I've never seen before. Bougainvillea. Bougainvillea. If there's a wordsmith in the audience, please tell me the meaning of that word. Anyway, whatever that is, the fluorescent purple that hanging from every rooftop into Swamiji's garden, as I watched the rays of sun rise over the Himalayas, everyone seemed fine. It's a flowering plant. Thank you, Jay. Okay. I always get in trouble with my mom. She's always telling me the names of the plants and flowers, and I'm saying, why do you need to know their names? Aren't they just nameless? Why do we have to put labels on them? And she would say, because it's fun to know. And you feel more connected once you know how to take care of it and what kind of identity it has, etc. I'm still learning. In retrospect, I realized that if I were not living my own spiritual experience, if I could not feel the tears of ecstatic union with every blade of grass, every tree, every drop of Ganga pouring out of my own eyes, if I didn't feel the nearly constant surge of expansion and connection with each breath, I would have said I'd become a sociopath. Let them live in that land. My family, my friends, those who had been the very foundation of my life for 25 years, the nearly instant detachment I felt from that first moment on the banks of the Ganga was something I would understand only many years later. At the time, though, I knew it was rooted in love. Swamiji understood it all. He lived in every land, simultaneously, and just as he knew, simply by looking in my eyes from 15 feet away, when I needed to be locked into a room. He knew what my parents and community needed without having met them. So as per the original plan, I boarded a flight back to California on the 15th of December. Pollution in India is much worse in wintertime than summer. In summer, rain cleans the skies. In winter, it's dry and cold. People living and working on the streets burn whatever they can to stay warm. Piles of flammable trash are ubiquitous in Delhi, so nearly every corner will find homeless people and day laborers huddled over burning mounds of trash, warming their hands in toxic fumes. November and December are also the months when the husks of autumn's crops are burned. With no functional system of composting and no waste management infrastructure, the farmers of Haryana and Uttar Pradesh spent the latter part of November and December burning husks and other unusable parts of rice, corn, millet, and sorghum from their autumn harvest. Sorghum. Maybe that's how that's pronounced. Visibility in Delhi in daytime is worse than in most cities at night. The sun is eclipsed not by the moon, but by a thick, impenetrable layer of smoke. As my flight took off from Delhi for San Francisco, as I watched the city, faintly visible beneath the veil of smog, get smaller and smaller, I cried. Not with ecstasy or truth this time, but with bottomless sadness. The Indian woman in the next seat next to me tried to make conversation. "Married?" she asked. "Yes, to Ganga," I told her. Thank you for listening. That is the end of the 17th chapter. So, what did we learn in that part? That she wanted to stay, but her guru said, no, you need to go back. And she didn't understand because she was happy here. Why did it matter? But I suppose such is the nature of very wise, elevated beings. Even though they recognize the peace and the path you have chosen, they also want it to appear as a voluntary one, not just for your own satisfaction, but for those that care and love you. And I think that's really beautiful, that even in the far-off land of the spirituality of India, still, these gurus care about what our communities back home think of us, and society standards are still considered, respected, as well as the choice to go beyond them. I truly believe that spirituality is one that doesn't reject any part of life, but finds a way of including it with respect and appreciation and the ultimate free will of everyone involved. I hope to continue reading with this next time.